We're splitting this video presentation into two parts. The first section is a 1910 movie made of a journey from Baker Street to Uxbridge, made by the Metropolitan Railway. And in part 2 of the video we'll mirror the same journey on a 21st century train, pointing out historical highlights on the way. We're going to do this as a sort of live stream. In the top right you can see a 2014 era trip along the Metropolitan. In fact, that's the Circle Line and Hammersmith and City going off to the left here, and we're heading off onto the Uxbridge, Watford, Chesham and Amersham branches of Baker Street Station. You can see roughly the same curve on the platform in the 1910 version. As we do this, we're going to run the 1910 version and the 2014 version side by side, matched up where we can. These platforms opened in 1869 for the Metropolitan and St John's Wood Railway. And we're just pulling into Baker Street Station on the modern movie. And there's a long tunnel section out of Baker Street. And we're looking at this old 1890s map since the modern railway is running underground. It's a bit dull unless you like signalling. The older filmmaker in 1910 wasn't shooting any scenes of this. And it's presumed that the 1910 movie was made to spur on development in the outer suburbs, as in 1904 the Met had opened the Uxbridge branch, and they were really into selling off land next to stations for development and making lots of money. There's another section of this movie shot on the Aylesbury branch, but we're not featuring that until we can clear up some copyright issues. Making a film was quite challenging in 1910. A lot of the time only 2 minutes at once could be shot, just due to the mechanics of old cameras, and film itself was quite expensive. But even after all this time, you can see how the movie was shot. They're concentrating on the stations but leaving the tunnel and countryside sections uncovered, using that time to change the reels on the camera. But it's the bits between the stations we most want to see nowadays, but ho-hum. Anyway, so we've now lined up the 1910 movie, and that first bridge didn't exist in the modern world, but this one does. We're just going underneath it, the same bridge, and that's that same slopey bit off to the left. And we're heading up over the Regent's Canal, which is why the railway comes up here over ground. So just here, the original railway only had a single running track with a single passing place at St John's Wood Road, and for a while, starting in 1874, the line operated with two human tokens, one in a red cap and one in a blue cap, and the train had to have the correct person on the engine to run on the single line. And to speed the working, as the train arrived at the station, the men would jump off the engine and slide to a halt along the platform, which was a source of great public entertainment. So as time went on, the station couldn't cope with the demands of cricket crowds, and it was demolished in 1925 and rebuilt. And in 1933 actually it was renamed Lord's. This is Marlborough Road station we're just passing through. Marlborough Road doesn't really exist anymore, but the station still had the name. Around about the 1930s, the Metropolitan Railway was suffering from congestion a bit, caused by the limited capacity of its tracks between Baker Street and Finchley Road. By the way, this is a modern, or later incarnation of Marlborough Road station. And that was the old Metropolitan line, but to relieve the congestion, a new section of tunnel was created between Baker Street and Finchley Road for the Bakerloo line, and the replacement caused the closure of the three Metropolitan line stations. So Lord's, St John's Wood Road as was, Marlborough Road and Swiss Cottage all disappeared. And this is a fine 1930s Swiss Cottage station, lovely. We're just coming out into the open air now at Finchley Road, and we should be able to line up the old movie here. Yeah, there we go. So again, you can see the curve of the station, but we're coming out at a slightly different platform. In fact, on the right, on the old movie, is the platform we're coming in at. One of the problems lining up these old movies is that the trains sometimes stop at stations, whereas the old movie filmmakers had this careering through the stations, so that's been an editing challenge. Nice shot of the Jubilee line train on the right there. And we're now coming into West Hampstead Station. Kilburn in 1800 or so before all the railways came along. This is the Edgware Road, Kilburn High Road. Very little development on the map. Kilburn Station. The railway spurred on a lot of development, so Willesden Green, just a few pictures from Willesden Green farms here. We had Matesbury Farm, now this is Bramley Farm, and Willesden Green Farm, a boon to mothers and infants apparently. You can see the buildings are the same, old and new. Dollis Hill Station opened only later, so we're not going to cover it in the old movie, but you can see how rural it was in 1900. Mark Twain was a visitor to Dollis Hill House, which was the only building in the area for a while. So coming now into Neasden Station. This is a 1900 era map which we've drawn up. We're just looking at these terraced houses in the centre of the shot now, which were just labelled A Street and B Street. The area was owned by the Metropolitan Railway, so they renamed these streets Quainton Street, Verney Street, Aylesbury Street after stations up the line which aren't on the Met anymore, and some of them, Quainton and Verney, aren't even open. So appearing on the map on the left is Wembley Park Station, still in fields in 1900, and this is one of our lining up problems. The 1910 train just speeds on through, and we're stopping on the right in 2014. Just a matter of interest, where it says Wembley Tower on the map was like a faux Eiffel Tower built by Edward Watkin, who is the owner of the Metropolitan Railway. And Wembley Park was like a huge leisure area, so the Eiffel Tower type thing didn't last the course and got demolished in time. We stopped at Preston Road on the modern train. This area really came into its own during the 1908 Olympics, when the shooting competition for the 1908 London Olympics was held at Uxbridge Farm. And you can see there's a village called Preston, which that name has really fallen out of use recently. Where the two railways cross is the future site of Northwick Park Station. And we're starting to come into Harrow at this point. You might have not seen Harrow on the Hill Station in the earlier movie when we've played it in full. That was an interesting copyright issue we had with the BBC, who said that they made this movie in 1910, even though they only came along in 1922. After Harrow on the Hill Station, the two branches diverge, one going up to Aylesbury and Amersham, etc., and our one going off left to Uxbridge, built in 1904. So this was the rural area that the line went through, stopping at West Harrow in the modern shot. And we're going to have the old First World War vintage Ordnance Survey map running in the background. Just showing how rural it all was. You can look at all the stations on the map seem to be all halts, which means you have to stick your arm out to stop a train. The only station was Ruislip. So this is where the Piccadilly line joins us in the modern world. Only a Metropolitan line in the old days. Another halt appearing at Eastcote. Eastcote was just a lovely looking rural area. Lovely seeing out these old photos. You can just see some development around the station in 1916 at the time of the map. No longer the rural area it was. We're now heading towards Ruislip Manor, which is another halt, so nothing stopped there. So on the new railway there's a stop at Ruislip Manor, and off to the only stop on the railway, which was a station rather than a halt, Ruislip. And interestingly, just look at the embankment behind the after the station, and look at all the children having a picnic. Health and safety, eh? Just a few shots of the 1904 opening of the Uxbridge branch. And Ickenham was just a country halt in those days. Now heading off to Hillingdon. This is a lovely shot of the old countryside on the old movie. An utterly rural scene. Hillingdon station didn't exist. It's just going to be just beyond this bridge on Long Lane. And here is the modern station, thanks to OpenStreetMap. It's a bit different, a bit busy with the Western Avenue going through. The original version of Uxbridge Station was in Belmont Road, roughly where the Sainsbury's car park would be nowadays. And you can see an arrow pointing to the old station on the first map. And in the 1930s a new station was built on the High Street. And so as we go under this big brick archway, we can see the new line going off to the left, but on the old movie we're going to go off to the right and terminate at Uxbridge Station in Belmont Road. That's where the old movie stops. And in the 2014 version we enter the lovely Art Deco concrete of Uxbridge Station.